Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. This is episode 398. We've got a great panel, got some great stories. I think it's going to be a great discussion. We've got a special guest. We've got Adrian Toby from... he'll be introducing himself. We record this live every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. You can watch it live on the WP-Tonic Facebook page. I've actually pushed it the right way this week. Things have started well. So, Adrian, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Absolutely. So first off, thanks for having me. Super glad to be here and be able to share some thoughts with you guys and ladies. I am the CEO and founder of a plugin for WordPress called Groundhogg. We specialize in marketing automation for people who use WordPress as their primary CMS. Anything from email marketing, SMS marketing, automated sales pipelines, and all of that good stuff that you would expect from primarily software as a service companies. We just take that and we put it into your WordPress dashboard for you, so you can keep all of your content, all of your data just in one place, which is your WordPress website. Make that your business hub, really, so you can stop having to tab in, tab out, log in, log out, all that good stuff.
Sounds great to me. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Certainly. I'm Sally Getch, the WP fangirl, and also the human attached to ADD Kitty, the real star of the show, and the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
That's great. And Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I was just checking out Groundhogg. It looks really cool. My name's Chris Badgett. I'm from Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress plugin for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses. I also have a podcast for course creators called LMS Cast.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. Go and listen to it. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
John Locke of Lockdown Design and SEO, helping manufacturers and industrial companies with SEO. Simple. Right.
Let's go straight into the story. We'll start with Elementor launches Hello theme on WordPress.org. What did you think of this one? Let's start with our guest, Adrian. What did you think of this?
Well, it's certainly a win for Elementor. I use Elementor for my entire website. I think it's a great software, and if you don't use it, then I would definitely recommend you check it out. I used to be a super huge Aveda fanboy. In previous experience, I used Aveda for all of my clients' websites when I worked in a digital marketing agency. But I recently switched. Pardon?
We'll forgive you.
We'll forgive me.
Yeah,
I recently switched.
You're just a nice young man. We're going to forgive you.
I switched all my my personal website now for Groundhogg. I switched it all over to using Astra and Elementor, and the difference in speed and just ease of use is just astounding. So this is certainly a win for the Elementor community. I tried to use Hello theme. I wasn't a huge fan. I like a little bit more structure, and then you have to build everything kind of yourself, even the headers, the footers, all that. I like the widgets and the structure of kind of like generic WordPress and your typical WordPress theme template. But for those out there who use Elementor to do literally everything, it's a huge win. Automatic updates, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, the tavern, one of the comments, had a bit of a go at Astra and their speed. So I thought that was a little bit unnecessary, but there we go. What do you reckon, Chris? What did you reckon?
I thought it was interesting. I also just want to highlight another media outlet in our world here. Matt Medeiros has another show called The Random Show with Brad, and they talked about this Hello theme in quite detail. They had some theories, and it was interesting. But I think, Beaver Builder has always had their own starter theme. If you just want to do Beaver Builder, you can just use the plain Beaver Builder theme. I think it is a bold move on Elementor's part to, this is going to affect themes like Astra, like Generate Press, like Ocean WP, the themes that are known for working with page builders. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing or whatever. And to their credit, all those themes are not really page builder specific. They work with any page builder. It's not like it's just Elementor or whatever. So it's just interesting to see Elementor do that. And I believe they didn't change their pricing or anything. Or did they? Is it a Or is it
Not
just
to
a
my
value
not to
add?
my knowledge. I use both Elementor and Beaver Builder. I try and use both
Mm-hmm.
myself up to.
One trust not on the same site.
No, oh no, not on the same site.
So
No,
it begs the question: why would somebody choose like Astra over Hello Theme? And I know Astra has a lot of options, not just for page builders, which might be the deciding factor if you want to do something to WooCommerce or a learning management system or
lift
some
to LMS.
yeah. So, but I find it an interesting move. They
Yeah.
didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it, but they did it. So.
Yeah, what was Matt's theories? Was it world domination that they're seeking to dominate?
Basically, he said next they're going to do e-commerce, and it's like the SaaSification of WordPress, and they're trying to be the walled garden, one-stop shop. I mean, that was basically his theory.
Well, it could be. I'd be surprised if it was, but
Oops, Chris is frozen.
Yeah, we could hear you, Chris, but you're frozen.
I'll have to go to my backup camera.
Yeah, there you go. Sally, what did you think?
I think we're going to see more themes like this. I mean, I suspect that Elementor had a pretty good idea that it would be popular given how many people use Astra and how, we're moving toward this kind of, theme as container for the layouts that you build, whether that's with Gutenberg or with Elementor or with Beaver Builder or with, whatever might come along. But it is true that while some people want to tinker with everything, and I have a client like that, and it's like, oh, please, please just go get a page builder and leave me alone, because you cannot afford to pay me to sit there and dictate everything I do. But
go forth and destroy your site.
but other people, they want to be able to change certain things. They want to say, well, but I want the colors to be like this or the fonts to be like this. But they don't have the, they don't want to spend all of the time and effort and fuss and thought to say, oh, well, I want it to have, a header like this and a sidebar in this kind of page and not a sidebar in that kind of page and a footer that's whatever. That there are people who can't visualize that stuff and who also just don't want to spend time on it. It doesn't matter that much as long as whatever they've got actually works.
Yeah, okay. What do you reckon, John? Is Elementor for world domination?
Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, but definitely a lot of people are already using an Astra and Elementor stack. In fact, that's probably like how the majority of people who are starting to build websites in WordPress over the last 3 years, most of them that I'm seeing are doing that. So I think that this is a good idea. I like the idea of a blank theme, and this one especially, just as it states, it works as a conduit for Elementor, and I think that is really how a lot of people are building websites in the WordPress ecosystem now. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I'll be a little bit iffy about this myself because I love Elementor and I still keep on using it, but when you start, you've got to be a bit cagey. Well, I say that you probably have the same problem if you're using the Astra. You got to. You kind of obviously they want you to become more and more reliant on their ecosystem.
Well, that is kind of true of anybody who creates any product whatsoever.
Exactly. So I'm going to be silent and go on to the next story. I apologise, listeners and viewers. I was waffling there. Sally put me right. So on to story 2. Communication seems a good thing until you have too much of it. It's like a lot of things, isn't it, in life? You want it and then it's just too much. What did you reckon about this one, Sally? Are you on Slack all the time, Sally?
I'm on Slack now and again. I mean, pretty much every day, but not necessarily all day. The same way I'm on Twitter or on, the purpose of Instagram is cats. So, that's just the occasional break.
No.
But this is basically the same conversation that we had about email, that we probably had about telephones when they first came into offices, except that
Oh yeah, those bloody telephones when
I,
they first came into my office.
when,
Oh, dear.
well, I have to say the telephone is still one of the, next to my husband and my cat, the most disruptive thing. But it's sort of like, well, yes, what a surprise. If you spend all of your time, looking at these things, you are not going to concentrate on your work. And this is not necessarily news. And, of course, technology is not going to magically make you more productive. Somebody, if you really want your Slack workplace to be very focused on work, you've got to actually have somebody in there kind of, coordinating the conversations and keeping things on track. It doesn't do away with the, it's like there is no tool that does away with the need to have a project manager.
No, I'm going to put this to Chris, but before it, Chris, what I read in the article was, she was talking about, company culture, having boundaries. You must get inundated, you and your team, from Facebook, Twitter, from help, from your contact page. It's coming in all directions nowadays, isn't it? How do you deal with it? And you're probably using Slack, but how do you kind of balance that you actually are getting something done, not spending all your time on Slack?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, so I've been at this for a while, like online business for 10 years. And the secret for me personally is just very strong habits and rules. So I don't do really instant anything except for live meetings like this. I treat Slack like email. It's not instant for me. And a lot of times I don't have it open. Even my friends and family complain about my, if they text message me, sometimes it takes a day or two for me to get back, or a Facebook message, it's not on my phone. So I had to develop all these mechanisms and habits to do it on my own terms. I even have blocks on my calendar of like, this is when I go into social media and engage. Or, I only process email once a day, if that. And I also have a team to help me with all the email and everything like that.
Well, the way I deal with it, it's antisocial. Mornings are podcasting, going on podcasts, doing anything to get myself in front. Afternoons I actually do work, and weekends I do work. So mornings during the week, it's all this kind of crap. And then afternoons and weekends, it's actually doing work.
I think having those clear boundaries, when you try to do everything, that's when things start falling apart and people start getting really stressed out, and it starts to impact them negatively. I'm not anti-technology or communication, but it's just one of those things you have to kind of learn how to drive it. Otherwise, it'll drive you.
Yeah, I found in some company cultures when they've introduced Slack, they've gone absolutely potters. They're all on there all the bloody time.
It's also team size. Like I have a small company, but if I go into a more active Slack, like Beaver Builder Slack or Post Status Slack or the WordPress Slack, it's like a fire hose. I think Slack works really well when you're like, your team is less than 30 people or the community is really small. It's those big Slacks that I think are kind of unmanageable in my opinion.
Well, you don't have to join all the channels.
That's another good point. Yeah.
What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I'm like Chris. I have routines, and that's how I structure my day and my week, and that's how I'm able to focus and actually get stuff done. Slack is, I just use it just to kind of like pop in and look at conversations. And most of the time I set myself to away, so nobody like knows that I'm there anyway.
It's not sneaky, isn't it?
Yeah, it is sneaky. I'm a sneaky person. I don't know. It's just like another thing like social media or email. It can be really distracting. I understand that some companies that are remote feel that they have to do it so that everybody has culture and knows everybody and stuff like that. But but end of the day, it can be just another distraction.
Yeah, I thought you were really right about that. But like they said in the article, which I agreed, in the article, culture really comes from the founders and the CEO of the business. That's where it fundamentally comes from. What do you reckon, Adrian? Are you on Slack all the time?
Well, my team and me personally, we don't actually use Slack.
Oh, goodness gracious!
We
I
did.
I don't really. It's not a problem, really, is it?
We're not actually big users of that platform. We use a project management platform called Basecamp, and that's what we use. And Basecamp is a lot less focused on the peer-to-peer communication aspect than it is kind of like looking at your project overall. You have your folders, you have your project files, and then you can go peer-to-peer communication, but it's mostly transactional than it is, hey, how are you, or sending gifts or stuff. It's mostly just transactional. Hey, listen, is this done? Or sending pieces of code. So I again, as John Long, I'm with Chris. I'm while I work, I don't like being distracted with a lot of conversation. I like to focus on the task at hand. When I get Facebook messages, right now I do a lot of the support for my own company, and when I get the Facebook messages, and they're usually from the support end, but I'm in the middle of something, our automatic messages, hey, listen, go submit a support ticket, and that'll get answered within 48 hours. So, we'll solve your problem then. And that's what we do. The absolute productivity goes down when you're kind of fire hosed with all of these messages from all of these people that want instant gratification to their immediate problem. But it's about, when you first, for example, working in a digital marketing agency, when you take on a new client and, they have high expectations, you set the boundaries up front. And, hey, listen, we have other clients. You're not the only one, but we are here to help you and we will solve your problems. But that problem might not get solved as soon as you find it. Right. And when you don't set those boundaries is when you start to experience these problems of an inundation of comments of this H1 tag is too large, or this paragraph is in the wrong place from your clients.
Yeah, I use Slack for this, and I do the thing that John does as well. I kind of delve in secretly in ghost form. But I use something called Teamwork. That's what we use. That's what I use for my projects. It kind of so you don't quite have this problem. But I can see Slack being a creature of the devil, actually. But there we go. Well, we're going to go for our break, folks. But before that, I want to talk about one of our great sponsors, and that is WP Fusion. And what does WP Fusion do? Well, if you've got your WordPress, which you should have in your technology stack, and you've got your CRM, like Active Campaign and some of the other people that Adrian would not want me to mention, but unfortunately, Adrian, I'm going to have to. If you want those to really communicate with one another, you need WP Fusion. And just go over to their website, look at their packages, and I've got a great gift for you listeners and viewers, exclusively for WP Fusion. You're going to get 25% off if you use the coupon code WP-Tonic, all uppercase, one word, with any of the packages on the WP Fusion website. You will get 25% off, and that's exclusively offered to just you listeners, viewers. What more could you ask for your holiday weekend? We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've delved into the Satan's brew of Slack. And, oh yeah, I just want to mention, listeners and viewers, when we're recording this, my Prime Minister has resigned. Thank God, she's gone. So, on to the next story. She wasn't Churchill, put it that way.
Didn't even take a milkshake.
No, I don't agree with that anyway. That's horrible. Do that to people.
Well, I seem to remember Churchill got booted out at least once and came back later.
Oh, he had all sorts of stuff thrown at him. There we go. They were proper politicians in those days. Beyond WordPress. All right, let's get into this, Jonathan. Beyond WordPress, a 10-year evolution at Human Made. I'm going to ask Chris, what did you make of this one? What do you think they're up to, in a way?
I have a lot of respect for Human Made. They it looks like they're going after trying to position as a leader in the digital experience platform as a category. However, when I was reading this, a lot of it is pretty corporate. Like I was trying to get it, I kept asking myself, well, like, what is it?
I'm sorry to say it. Was it me or was it terribly written?
I don't know if I would say terribly written, but like it says delivering business value by driving intuitive user experiences and connecting digital strategies.
Yes, what does triple mean? This is what
I know what these words mean, but I was having a hard time.
Comes out the mouth, doesn't
I was
it?
like, what is in the stack? What is in the stack? I looked at Grasshopper and I could see what's in the stack. But I was like, what's in the stack here? It wasn't completely clear to me. But I think it is cool to like expand a category and serve a market in a more complete way. I just didn't quite get it.
I think I just want to jump in here because I just went to Collision Conference and I was speaking a little bit about this. For those of you who don't know, Collision Conference is this massive, like 25,000 attendee tech conference that was held for the first time here in Toronto, where I am. Oh. And it's basically all of your massive enterprise people show up, and then there's a bunch of startups that go who are looking for funding. I was one of those startups. There's like a big pitch competition. And something that I noticed by visiting around and talking to people is that everybody at one point was either a WordPress freelancer at one point in their lives, or they used WordPress, or their sister uses WordPress, or their company has a WordPress website, but there was zero actual WordPress representation in the crowd except for my booth, and I think Ninja Forms was there as well. So those were the only two people in this 25,000 person conference that had like any sort of representation in the tech industry that was there. It's like, hey, WordPress is a thing that people use, and I think what they're doing, at least with this article and with the product, is that they're looking to target bringing WordPress into the rest of the tech world, using language that big enterprise level companies use, and making it seem though as, you know, it's not just the blogging platform that it was a decade ago, but it's evolved to a point where, you know, McDonald's, for example, their corporate website uses WordPress in order to host their products and their menus and all those things. So I think this was really geared towards focusing on not necessarily your typical WordPress user, but looking to bring it to a whole tech industry that wouldn't necessarily consider WordPress.
Yeah, that's interesting. So
I think that's absolutely the case. And it's like, it was sometime last year when WP Engine rebranded and changed its pricing, which distressed a bunch of people. But, you go to their new website and I'm like, what the heck is a digital experience platform when it's at home? And I suppose I should not be surprised that we're seeing more of that. And Human Made is a company that did, VIP kind of stuff. They've worked with enterprises before. And, so it's not in a way so different from what Spencer's company does, or what, that's like, well, we're combining WordPress with other tools businesses use, your customer relationship management, or your marketing automation, or your this, or your that. And right, it's, other people are seeing the opportunity in this because WordPress does a lot of things, but there's a bunch of things it doesn't. And those are things that businesses need to do. But yeah, it's heavy on the jargon, but I think that's kind of the way things operate in that.
I was being facetious. I was being a bit facetious there, but you will get that from me. But there was an element of truth to it also. That it was kind of this hardcore marketing, corporate messaging that you get in every kind of.
You could for sure win buzzword bingo with it, Paige. Yes.
Good. What did you reckon, John?
Yeah, so I dropped the URL in here. I was digging a little bit deeper, and this is kind of like their getting started documentation. It looks like basically this Altus project is, it's kind of a layer on top of WordPress that they're using to kind of sell this to the enterprise. They're basically describing it in a way, describing WordPress and whatever layers they're putting on top in a way that doesn't make it seem commonplace, or it makes it seem basically sophisticated, like in a way that enterprise level development teams to find it more palatable and approachable. It does look like on their project roadmap for Altus that they have other things on there, like marketing and AI interactions. So I think that that's very interesting.
You got to mention AI in your documentation.
Crypto.
All this
That's right.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. But
When is Lifter going to be mentioning AI in their documentation, Chris? You've got to come on the band.
We already did. I'm just kidding. We haven't yet. But
right, there we go. Sorry, John. I was interrupting.
Oh yeah, no. Basically, it looks like basically it's just a bundle, like multi-site. Some of the basic stuff that we already know, but they're adding like layers on top. And I think that's great. It's good for them.
Well, it could be nice. I could say to Adrian, when are you going to be putting AI into your documentation and into your project? You must be looking at. Sorry, it's been terrible to my guest.
He's going to these conferences. He's got.
Yeah, there we go. Here's the buzzword.
At the conference, I think 75% of all of the startup booths mentioned AI in their quick product description. X, thing that tracks X powered by AI, and you got to wonder if their AI is a guy named Bruce in the basement on a computer. Because that's basically how much funding they have to build this kind of stuff. But I digress. AI would be great, but I don't think WordPress is quite at the point where we'd be able to have the resources in order to be able to train artificial intelligence on a per site basis. We do some basic like intelligence stuff, not artificial intelligence, but just like intelligent stuff like lead scoring and what time of day is the best time to send your email out based on when your customers' open rates are. But basic stuff like that, nothing crazy that I would consider putting AI. It's a little bit of an oversell of what we currently do for sure.
That was just a buzzword, though. But to ask you about this conference, was there any kind of trends or patterns that you saw that was interesting?
The booth beside me actually was pretty cool. They were offering a free phone, but you have to give up 25% of your life, which is so for this free phone, 25% of your screen would be forever taken up by a persistent ad. So if you're on Facebook or you're on, just 25% of your screen would just be advertising, but your data would be free, the phone would be free, the plan would be free, everything would be free. Essentially, you got more data and more time and more minutes. The more time or the more space you show this ad.
You're going to make the phone 25% bigger than all the other ones, so you still have enough screen?
They were showing it on the latest Galaxy, whatever it is, the super big one. So it looked, your screen size was still large, although the phone, again, the screen was just 25% ad though still. So they were there promoting.
Adrian, isn't that Facebook anyway?
That is, yeah. So it's just ads on ads on ads on ads on ads, but Facebook doesn't give you a free phone, though.
Yeah, there are a lot of websites where I'm pretty sure actually it's more than 25% of your screen that's taken up with ads, and I usually don't visit them twice.
Yeah, well, especially you're in the booth, you're trying to sell your thing, but sometimes it's not the best way to see what's going on. But you must have had one. Was that it? There must have been something else that.
There was loads of stuff. A lot of 25% of all booths was like Uber or Airbnb for their product. A lot of B2B, so pop-up shop kind of Airbnb type deals.
People haven't figured out that, like, just as Facebook is the Facebook of whatever, Uber is the Uber of whatever.
That's what I keep saying to the people I was walking around with. It's like, isn't that just like Uber, or isn't that just Airbnb? But they say they're not going to do it. It hasn't been done yet, but Well, I mean, that's why they're in
they have the
Elementor
resources to
company,
do
right?
it well.
Yeah. Other than that, there were a few focused. A lot of stuff was focused on the influencer kind of marketplace, making connecting brands to influencers easier through several marketplaces. A lot of marketplace type apps and technology. I didn't focus too much on any of the hardware or anything like that because it doesn't necessarily interest me all that much. I'm a software guy. I barely passed the hardware course in university. So I stayed away from that. There was one guy, I'm not sure if anybody watched Silicon Valley, the TV series.
Yeah, I did, it was a guilty secret. It was a bit of a guilty secret, but I did watch it occasionally.
Yeah, I watched all of it. I thought it was hysterically funny. And
it's all true as well. Every character I do kind of go down to San Francisco periodically, and I must have met every character in that show in true life.
Yeah, so for those who have not watched Silicon Valley, it's about a company called Pied Piper and their trials and tribulations to try and bring their product to the world. Their product was essentially a decentralized internet, so all of no more data centers, just all of your storage, all of your stuff would be hosted in the cloud, but on other people's devices.
That's actually the definition of the cloud. There is no cloud, only other people's computers.
Yeah, but most of the cloud is hosted on like AWS's like server stacks, right? So it would totally be about all of the phones in the entire world. So all of your data on your phone would be not just hosted on your phone, but on everybody else's phones as well. And that's kind of like the concept. I'm probably not doing it enough justice, but that's kind of how I understood it.
But that's the American intelligence service anyway, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know nearly enough about the industry, but there was a guy claiming, at least that I had met in person, that he's created this fictional software that's in Pied Piper from the Silicon Valley series in real life. So I thought that was cool, although his burn rate's like $100,000 a month, and he's running out of funding. So we're going to see how long that lasts.
Oh, well, there we go. I thought, because you've been here, it sounded fascinating.
WordPress was underrepresented, and we need more WordPress people to go because people need to know WordPress is a viable solution for a lot.
And there are worse places to attend a conference than Toronto.
Yes, there are. We have lots of bars and lots of craft beer. It's a good place to visit.
Don't sound too bad. I'm just too old for all that now. It's slippers and cocoa for me. On to the next. How a link in your theme almost ruined our business and how we fixed it. What did you think of this one, John?
Yeah, so I found this very interesting. There's two things by reading this where they screwed up. The first is they made the link in their themes a followed link. But the second clue to this, why they got hit with a manual unnatural links penalty or a algorithmic unnatural links penalty, is the anchor text, meaning the words inside the link, was their brand name. It wasn't WP Zoom, but it was whatever it was, like
built by,
theme,
powered by.
So like when you put the actual keyword that you're trying to rank for in the link, that is, you can't have it like super heavy like that. I know that there are theme shops that have since been sold, but several years ago actually still have followed links in footers because the themes haven't been updated or something. But there are theme shops out there that do have followed links from the past. Now all of those in the last 4 or 5 years changed those into no follows or just made them unlinked. But this sort of thing, I think where they probably got hurt is they had a whole bunch of sites that there's a lot of people out there, they'll just spin up sites for affiliate sites, or they'll just spin up scraper sites for a year and then they'll go away. And basically what we call churn and burn, where you just throw every black hat link at this site and you don't care about the long-term ranking value. You're just trying to get affiliate commission now. So you put up all these like review articles, just gobsmacked with affiliate links, throw a whole bunch of like dirty black hat links at them. and you don't care about it because you're going to throw that domain away at the end of the year anyway. But probably what happened to these guys is there's a bunch of sites that were using their theme to build sites like this, and that plus the anchor text on a followed link probably triggered some kind of like red flag where the algorithm just like hit them with a penalty. But definitely, yeah, if you're going to link something, link your brand name. If you're going to sell commercial themes, there has to be a way for people to take that out, because if people are buying a theme from you, they have to have that. They either have to know, like if you're building a theme for somebody else, like a site, if you want to link in the bottom, that doesn't seem to be like a penalty. It's not like a lot of linking power, but if you're selling like a product like this, they have to be able to remove that. Otherwise it qualifies as a link scheme. So that's why they got hit. Now, because of the way that this penalty happened, they used the disavow file, and I understand, like, it got de-indexed, meaning they didn't appear in Google search anymore, then I could see using the disavow. In most cases, you're not going to need to use the disavow file, but I understand why they did that in this case. But yeah, the point being, if you use a disavow file, Google does not look at your domain the same way again. It's basically saying you did something bad, and it's admitting to Google that you did something bad. Now, in their case, I totally understand it, but they pushed out an update to this theme to where it was a no-follow link to their brand name instead of like WordPress theme, with a follow link. So
there we go. You got to be careful. What do you reckon about all this, Chris?
It made me a little worried because I have.
Maybe check my console. I thought,
if you install Lifter LMS, you can install a sample course, and that's a course with me in there teaching how to use a site with Lifter LMS. And there's a bunch of links to Lifter LMS in those lessons. Am I running the same risk with that? I'm asking John, I guess.
Right.
It's not a footer link, but there's a lot. I mean, there's probably 5 links times 20 lessons, 100 links.
Person, Chris, you're being naughty.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
It's behind a login.
Yeah, then if it's behind a login, then it's probably not indexed. One way to check is to search for the exact URLs in Google and see if they have it indexed.
Okay.
That might be a way to do it. Yeah, that's the other thing too. They got hit with it because it's a site-wide link. Like
site-wide. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Naughty. What do you reckon, Adrian? You wouldn't do naughty things like this, would you?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? I would.
I was actually. Yeah, you got that look. I'll do it all.
I run another product of mine. Is called FormLift. We build forms for people who use Infusionsoft, and it's a freemium model. But in order to generate any sort of revenue with this product, we have to put in a credit at the bottom that people can remove by purchasing any premium plugin or premium add-on for it, and it says powered by FormLift. The FormLift portion of the link is what's used. I think it is a follow link because that's how we ended up on page 1. But most people don't put like these links on their home page, and they do put them on indexed pages, but not generally kind of like any site-wide stuff. So I haven't seen anything from our like Google Analytics or that would mention, we have some suspicious links pointing to us. Anybody who uses Infusionsoft is most likely not anybody that we should be worried about. So I'm not too worried about it, although it is certainly something to consider, just putting in the no follow attribute in there to make sure that because we have our page 1 list, we have our page 1, our number 1 ranking, so we don't really need the follow attributes anymore. So it's probably just a good idea to go in there, update that at the no follow. A lesson learned from this article for sure.
No, I've just seen loads of people do this type of shit, and it works. But I suppose it works until Google kind of finds out, and then it causes you pain.
Google has, Google hires smart people, and they are, when they discover folks are gaming them, they find ways around it. Now, I think it's the kind of thing that could happen accidentally in a way. I mean, it's nothing really, if it's like if they'd had the link on their business name, they would have been in much less trouble. And it might just not have occurred to them that would be something that they needed to do.
There we go. On to story 5, the last story. Prospress joins.
Prospress Press.
Prosperous Press. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Joins Automattically to jointly develop WooCommerce subscription. Oh, somebody wants somebody. There we go. It's probably Chris.
Sorry.
There we
Sorry
are.
about that.
It's a customer, Chris.
There we go.
What do you reckon of this one, Adrian?
I have the last story as Pod Fund. Are we looking at the same thing here?
I just remembered I changed it at the last minute and I didn't.
Why don't you start at the other end and then work your way back to me?
No, that doesn't stop any of the other panelists from passing comments. They don't read any of my bloody stories. Let's try Chris then. Chris, what did you think?
I thought it's cool. I met Brent before. He's a great guy over at Prospress, and for those who aren't aware of what the main thing that company is known for is Woo subscriptions, which allows you to do recurring payments on WooCommerce. And it really makes sense. I mean, if Automattic is going to acquire WooCommerce, which they did several years ago, they want to also get into the recurring revenue, into the cash flow. And when you control the recurring revenue, that's where the strongest business model is. As an example, over at Lifter LMS, our most popular stuff are our e-commerce add-ons. So we can sell those, and that helps people make money more than it costs to buy the software. So it's just, I understand why Automattic wants that control point, and I think they're really lucky to get Prospress, and Brent's great, and I've met some of their team. They're great people, so it just makes sense. It seemed inevitable to me, just from the outside looking in.
What do you reckon, Sally?
Well, I know a couple of, this was maybe again last year. I have a very hazy sense of time. It passes so fast now that I'm old. And, but I know that EDD bought a lot of the third-party add-ons for that platform.
Love EDD.
Because, that made sense to them in a way of like making sure they were supported and making sure that everything was consistent and kept up. And this certainly, makes sense from the perspective of Automattic, and it probably makes a lot of sense from the perspective of Prospress because, they suddenly have more backing, possibly less control, but, it sounds like the direction they're going in the right direction. I do have this sudden sort of inception thought of, does WooCommerce.com use the WooCommerce subscription plugin to sell the WooCommerce subscriptions plugin?
Yes, probably. Who knows?
Agent's read quick. Got any comments then, Agent?
Yes, I've read it. And it can only mean
it was a test, actually, Agent.
my speed reading was challenged for sure. I think it's a great thing. Control is definitely, at least for a platform as large as WooCommerce, you want to make sure that when you have your customers and they're going to third parties, generally what happens if the third party fails WooCommerce, then who gets the blame? WooCommerce, not necessarily the third party. So having control over the tools that their users use and making sure that it's a consistent and enjoyable customer's experience, it would be definitely priority number one. So acquiring when our business models across the world are going to MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and being able to control the tools that will provide the businesses the opportunity to collect monthly recurring revenue is definitely the space that you want to be in, and making sure that that's an enjoyable and satisfactory experience will only lend credibility to your brand and all of the brands that use those tools as well.
Good point. John, what did you think?
It's an acquisition that makes sense. So congratulations to Prospress for the payday and joining the Automattic team. That's one of the plugins in WooCommerce that ecosystem that is one of the most popular. So I think this really does make sense to bring that team in to the Automattic family. Maybe they will eventually get WooCommerce in the .com offering. I'm sure that they're still working on that, and they want to be Squarespace. So maybe eventually they'll get there. Yeah. Good story.
Yep. On to picks of the week, recommendations from the panel. My one is Element Pack. It's an add-on for Elementor. The link, if you go to the website, the link will be there. It's got some functionality that I was using on a client site that was useful, and it's about $28, so it won't bust your budget out too much. Panel, if you got any, put them in either the chat or the Slack channel. Chris, have you got anything? But
yeah, I just found a new podcast, or at least new to me. It's with a guy named Naval Ravikant. He's on Twitter. I've heard it said before that you really don't get that much out of a tweet, but like there's never like a tweet that changed your life or whatever. But I heard that his tweets were so good, and he started, kind of expounding on what he meant in a short form podcast. And I've really gotten a ton of value out of it. I think they're about 30 episodes deep. They're short, about 5 minutes. That's Naval Ravikant, and I believe the podcast is called Startup Boy. Also, Naval Podcast.
What does he say in these 5 minutes then?
Well, it's a lot. You got to listen to it. It's a lot of stuff just where it's counterintuitive insights. If you've ever followed someone like Nicholas Nassim Taleb, who's kind of a contrarian, it's you just get good insights into how things actually work.
All right, there we go. I'll take your word for it. I always listen to Chris. All right, then. Sally, got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yes. We had a meetup last week about WP-CLI, so I decided I'd install it and try it out and look around for packages, and I found one that's extremely handy. It's Jay Wood's WP-CLI shortcode scraper. So what it will do is go through the site and find every shortcode that's in the database. So it doesn't have to be registered or active. So if you are cleaning up a site that was built with something, like a Divi or Visual Decomposer, and you need to find all of those shortcodes, you can do it, and it will output them to the screen with the page title and the
Wow.
post ID and the actual shortcode and what's inside of it. So
that's bloody useful, isn't it?
Yeah, hello, yes. So I think this is going to be a very...
I've had some... So you're making me have a cold sweat now.
I'm sorry, because I mentioned Visual Decomposer.
No, it's memory of a site I got involved in about 4 years, longer than that. It's probably 7, 8 years. And we had to try and clean it up, and it was all short codes everywhere, and it was... Oh my God, you just made me sweat a bit. There we go. John, got anything you want to recommend?
Yeah, so I'm going to recommend a book that I was reading about 10 years ago when I was still working in the factory, not doing web design, not doing marketing. And this is from an old school marketer, David Ogilvy, well-known name. This book is Ogilvy on Advertising. Lots of thoughts on copywriting, and getting your idea across. A lot of the old ideas that came from the print days of advertising and the Mad Men days, all those, the underlying theories of why things work, they still work in the digital age. Human beings don't change. So definitely go check out that book.
Oh, I'll have a look at that. Adrian, our beloved special guest, who's done a good job, actually. Got anything you want to recommend?
Absolutely. So at least at Groundhogg, one of the biggest things we love is making WordPress your business hub where you have all of your information and removing the need for outside software. So one of the things that we needed was a support plugin. We needed to have support tickets. We couldn't do everything through our Facebook group. So we needed to find something that would allow us to take those support tickets, manage them. We needed to have different people. So if you run a business which requires support tickets and you don't want to pay for services like Intercom, or you don't want a project management solution, then I'll just paste the link in here. We found a plugin called Awesome Support. It's used by 10,000 WordPress websites. At least that's what's listed on the WordPress repository. It is a bit of a gargantuan plugin. It has a lot of customizability. So there's a lot of things that you can play with, but they do have some helpful documentation and setup guides. And so far, we've been happy with the results that we've seen. You can reply via email. You don't have to log in. So it's actually very well thought out, and it's been useful for us in managing all of our support tickets for our platform.
I might have a look at that myself, actually.
Very nice. It appears I had bookmarked it, so somebody must have recommended it to me before.
There you go. You get top marks for that, Adrian. You have to come back. So we're going to wrap up the show. I'm going to let the guests tell you how they can be found so you can find out more about their wisdom. So, Adrian, how can people find out more about you, your company, and what you're up to?
So you can email me directly. It's info@groundhogg.io. Groundhogg is spelled with 2 G's, so we could trademark it. You can also go to our website, groundhogg.io, to find out more about what it is that we do and what we believe in. All of our main flagship plugin is listed on the WordPress repository for absolutely free. We also have a Facebook presence, just at Groundhogg WP on Twitter and on Facebook. We also have an open user group on Facebook that you can join if you have any questions, before you install or before you buy anything, or if you just want to reach out and say, hey, listen, what is this all about? Then you can do all of those avenues to either get in touch with me personally or any of my team members.
There we go. Amazing. Sally, how can people find out more about you and, of course, your cats?
Yes. Well, if you want to find the cats, you should follow me on Instagram, where I am at Sally Getch. And you can.
A bit bored now. It looks like it's had a bit of a hard night, and it's just.
Yes, well, it's such tiring work, demanding attention all the time. And I am at Sally Getch on Twitter. Also, I am at WPFangirl.com, and you can frequently find me in the Business of WordPress Slack team.
Do you think they're actually spirits that have come back, and they actually are running things? And we're not.
I'm fairly certain that the purpose of humans is to obey the whims of cats.
Yeah, I'm coming to that conclusion. I think it's a matrix. I think the cats run everything, actually. There we go. Oh, sorry. Chris, can you tell us how people can find out more about you or what you're up to, Chris?
Yeah, you can find me at lifterlms.com if you're into building courses or training-based membership site. If you want to talk to me, I'm actually running an experiment right now over the past 2 weeks where I have a 1-800 number on the website. Most people can't call a software company, but people do a lot of research. So I apologize for the interruption during this podcast recording. But if you go to our pricing page, you'll see a 1-800 number where you can call if you have a question about Lifter LMS.
Yeah, I think my whole life's been an experiment, really, Chris. But there we go. John, how can people find out more about you, what your wisdom, and what you're up to?
Oh, my wisdom, thanks. You can follow me at my website, lockdownseo.com. But also go check out my YouTube channel. I'm posting SEO tips daily. And just go on YouTube, search hashtag lockdown SEO. You should find it. So.
I'm just fascinated by Sandy's cat. It's ridiculous. Sorry, listeners and viewers. We'll be back next week with someone great guest, hopefully a great guest. Adrian's done a great job. And we'll be back next week with stories about WordPress, the web in general, and hopefully we'll provide some amusement for you, blessed listeners and viewers. We'll be back next week. Bye.